So what if the laws that govern the entire universe and the verses of a holy book were fundamentally connected? That's really the core idea behind one of the most influential modern commentaries on the Quran, Syed Qutb's In the Shade of the Quran. Now, this isn't just a translation, it's a deep thematic journey, and today we're going to explore some of its key insights.
We're going to be focusing on Volume 12, which covers chapters 21 through 25. This kind of commentary, it's known as tafsir, which is the art of interpreting the Quran not just as some ancient text, but as a living, breathing guide for life right now.
You know, this single idea right here is pretty much the foundation for everything that follows. Qutb is arguing that the Quran's message isn't just some abstract philosophy. It's meant to be as real and as unshakable as the laws that govern the cosmos itself.
So to see how he builds this case, we're going to follow 5 key themes from his commentary. We'll start big, with the vast universe, then move to the prophets who guide us. After that, we'll zoom right in on the creation of a single human being, and then widen out to the blueprint for a community. And finally, we'll explore the personal qualities of faith.
Okay, let's start with that cosmic connection. Qutb begins by framing the entire universe as a place of profound purpose. He points to the verse, "We have not created the heavens and the earth and all that is between them in mere idle play." His interpretation of this is that reality itself is built on a foundation of truth and seriousness.
This verse frames the struggle between truth and falsehood, not just as a moral battle, but as a universal law. You see, in Qutb's interpretation, truth's victory isn't just something you hope for. It's as certain and as embedded in the fabric of existence as a law of physics. Pretty powerful stuff.
So if the universe operates on truth, how is that truth communicated to us? Well, this brings us right to our second theme, the role of the messengers, or the prophets, in guiding humanity.
So why were the messengers human? Qutb argues this wasn't some kind of limitation, but actually a deliberate act of grace. Think about it. By choosing prophets who felt what we feel, who experience what we experience, the divine message becomes relatable, tangible, and just way more accessible.
And this highlights a really key point, the unity of the core message. Qutb emphasizes that while the messengers were all different individuals, from Noah to Abraham, Moses to Jesus, their fundamental teaching of God's oneness stayed constant. They represent a single, continuous chain of guidance for all of humanity.
Okay, so from that grand narrative of prophets, the commentary does something really interesting. It zooms way in on the individual. And here, the very creation of a human being is presented as one of the most profound signs of the divine.
The commentary walks us through these stages of creation, connecting the spiritual to the biological. It starts with our origin from the earth itself, an essence of clay, before detailing this miraculous process in the womb, from a single gamete to a clinging cell mass and finally an embryo. Each step is framed not as just random chance, but as a deliberate and purposeful act.
All right, let's look closer at that term, nutfa. The translator's notes clarify that while it's often translated as sperm, the original term can actually refer to both male and female germ cells, what we now call a gamete. And that's a fascinating example of how this interpretation tries to find harmony between ancient scripture and modern biology.
So, from the creation of the individual, the commentary expands out to the principles that govern a whole community. This section offers a kind of blueprint for how believers should interact with one another to build a decent and pure society.
In the chapter known as Surah Al-Nur, we find these parallel instructions for modesty. The commentary presents them not as just arbitrary rules, but as a practical system. Lowering one's gaze is that first preventative step, which then leads naturally to being mindful of chastity. The goal here is a system that fosters both personal purity and social harmony.
And this social blueprint extends to everyday stuff too, like the etiquette for entering someone's home. The rules you see here, seeking permission, not entering if it's empty, and leaving without getting offended if you're turned away, they're all rooted in this one profound principle, a deep and uncompromising respect for personal privacy and boundaries.
All right, so we've seen the cosmic, the historical, and the social. This final theme brings it all right down to the personal level. What are the defining character traits of a true believer, or as the text puts it, God's true servants?
The commentary then turns to another chapter, Surah Al-Furqan, to outline the inner qualities of a believer. The virtues mentioned here, from gentle humility and peacefulness to trustworthiness and charity, they're presented as more than just a checklist of actions. They're the external reflections of a person's internal state of faith.
But here's a really crucial clarification. Qutb argues that walking gently doesn't mean weakness or being passive. He points to the example of the Prophet Muhammad, who is described as walking with purpose and strength. So the ideal, then, isn't feebleness, but this inner serenity that projects dignity.
And this leads to the commentary's really bold, concluding argument about human nature. The idea is that on our own, we're weak and insignificant. True strength, value, and purpose, they aren't found within ourselves, but are gained only by connecting to the divine, the source of all strength.
And so we're left with this provocative question, which really lies at the heart of this entire commentary. Where do we find our ultimate value? For Qutb, the answer is crystal clear. It's not found within ourselves, but only in our connection to a reality that's far, far greater. It's a powerful idea to think about.